Welcome to AI Paper Podcasts. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a new paper at a Princeton University. It's called Vero, an open RL recipe for general visual reasoning. Let's just get straight to the 60-second summary for the ML practitioners listening.
Yeah, let's do it. So the central thesis here really tackles this huge bottleneck in multimodal scaling. Right now, proprietary vision language models, VLMs, they totally dominate general visual reasoning.
Right.
But their reinforcement learning pipelines are kept entirely behind closed doors. And the open source community, well, they've mostly relied on supervised fine-tuning or these incredibly narrow RL pipelines, usually, relying on math-only data sets.
Which, like we know, those narrow domains transfer terribly to heterogeneous visual tasks.
Exactly. So Vero introduces this fully open, single-stage RL recipe. And it actually achieves state-of-the-art performance among 8 billion parameter models.
And the solution isn't some crazy exotic new architecture, right?
No, not at all. The breakthrough really relies on a meticulously curated dataset. They call it Vero 600K. It's basically 600,000 samples across 59 datasets, and they pair that with a dynamically task-routed reward system.
So by uniformly mixing 6 distinct task categories, spanning, everything from STEM to grounding and chart reading, Vero completely eliminates the negative cross-task transfer that plagues those narrow models.
Yeah, and the resulting model, Vero Qwen 3T8B, it actually outperforms the highly formidable Qwen 3VL8B thinking on, I think, 24 out of 30 benchmarks on their custom VeroEval suite.
Wow.
So the core finding here is really that broad data coverage combined with task-aware rewards, that's the true engine of multimodal RL scaling.
Okay, so that's the high-level view. But to understand why this actually matters, we really need to unpack the loss landscape and, well, the specific engineering problem these researchers are trying to solve. Because right now, the open-source VLM reasoning space is stuck in this really frustrating paradigm.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, we get access to frontier model weights, like Qwen 3VL, but the RL training code and the data sets are withheld. We're basically handed the compiled executable, but not the source code for the reasoning itself.
Right. And previous open efforts, stuff like OpenMM Reasoner or VL Rethinker, they attempted to recreate that reasoning capability, but they heavily over-indexed on narrow domains, specifically visual math.
Which kind of makes sense on the surface, right?
Yeah, I mean, the prevailing assumption in the community has often been that optimizing for mathematical deduction acts as this, rising tide that lifts all logical boats.
Right, like if a model gets smarter at deducing complex geometry diagrams, you'd think general reasoning should just improve across the board. But why does optimizing for one visual capability actively degrade another in a multimodal neural network?
Well, it's because different visual tasks require fundamentally different cognitive mechanisms, and consequently you get these conflicting gradient updates, so mathematical reasoning requires a long deductive chain of thought. It's highly sequential, highly introspective, but bounding box grounding, on the other hand, requires directed, immediate spatial perception. So when you optimize a model solely on a narrow math dataset, the policy gradients aggressively overwrite the spatial weights. You induce interference.
Wait, so the model starts attempting to, algebraically deduce a button's spatial coordinates rather than simply just looking for it visually.
Yes. It's like training a marathon runner and expecting them to naturally excel at rock climbing. The specific muscle memory they develop for efficient, repetitive ground strikes actively works against them on a dynamic vertical wall.
Right, the mechanics of the movements are fundamentally opposed. So to fix this interference, the Princeton researchers engineered this massive data set spanning 6 core pillars. So we have STEM, spatial and action, chart and OCR, knowledge and recognition, grounding and captioning.
Yep, those are the 6.
But taking 250 candidate datasets and distilling them down to the 600,000 samples of Vero 600K, that required some intense data hygiene.
Oh, absolutely brutal filtering. The heuristic filtering was just the first phase. They dropped any data set with fewer than 1,000 examples or resolutions under 200,000 pixels, or even binary questions, because in an RL context, binary yes or no questions simply invite the policy to guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the heavy lifting, honestly, was the LLM-based question filtering. They deployed a massive Qwen 3 VL235B instruct model specifically to flag unverifiable or visually ambiguous questions.
Wait, so if the image didn't contain the precise information needed to answer the prompt reliably, it was just cut?
Completely cut.
Let's pause on those unverifiable questions for a second, because this touches on a critical sensitivity in RL mechanics. Like in supervised fine-tuning, An ambiguous visual prompt might just result in a noisy gradient that washes out over the course of a large epoch. But in an RL pipeline, a bad reward signal actively corrupts the policy gradient.
Exactly. It's the equivalent of feeding the model empty calories. It directly optimizes the model for hallucination. Because if a visual question is ambiguous, but the reward function still triggers based on a lucky hallucinatory guess, the optimizer reinforces that specific hallucination pathway. The empty calories give you a quick spike in the objective function, but the underlying general capability just crashes.
Which is why their final filtering step, the answer filter, was so vital, right? They used that same 235 billion parameter model to ruthlessly normalize the ground truths. So they strip units, converted currency symbols to decimals, standardized multiple choice letters.
Yeah, they really scrubbed it.
But, I mean, why dedicate massive compute just to strip the word dollars from $42 into the ground truth? Standardizing strings seems like basic string matching that a simple Python script could handle.
Well, doing it this way guarantees stable reward computation across an incredibly heterogeneous data set.
Yeah.
If the ground truth is strictly normalized, the reward function doesn't have to account for, like, infinite semantic variations during the RL update step.
Oh, I see.
The gradient path remains stark and clear. The optimizer knows exactly what constitutes success without linguistic ambiguity blurring the signal. And actually, this normalization alone improved the knowledge and recognition category score by 2.1 points.
Wow. Okay, so the data's pristine. But feeding 600,000 pristine samples into a standard optimizer still poses risk for policy collapse. The Vero team actually bypassed standard GRPO, that's Group Relative Policy Optimization, and they utilized Group Sequence Policy Optimization, GSPO. Let's dig into the math differences here because this is fascinating.
Yeah, it's a crucial shift.
So GRPO calculates independent per-token importance ratios. Now, GSPO uses a sequence-level importance ratio.
Right. So GRPO looks at the advantage of each individual token. It normalizes advantages across a batch of completions at the token level, essentially asking, did this specific word or number increase the expected reward?
Right, token by token.
Exactly. But GSPO steps back. It treats the entire reasoning phrase as a single action within the Markov decision process. It evaluates the entire chain of thought as a cohesive trajectory, asking if the complete sequence was optimal, and then routes that gradient back through the entire sequence.
And looking at the ablations in the paper, that sequence-level evaluation dramatically affects entropy. Like GSPO maintained an entropy of 0.58 across training, standard GRPO dropped to 0.50, and DPO, direct alignment policy optimization, completely collapsed to 0.22.
Yeah, and you have to remember, entropy preservation is the absolute linchpin of successful reinforcement learning. If your entropy crashes, the policy collapses into a local minimum.
Right, the model just stops exploring.
Exactly. It stops exploring the action space entirely and just repeatedly outputs the safest, most generic response it found during the early training steps. So by evaluating at the sequence level, GSPO avoids overly penalizing intermediate tokens that might look mathematically suboptimal locally, but are actually necessary for a globally optimal reasoning chain.
That is so smart. And they also made this highly unusual decision to completely remove the KL penalty.
Yeah, that was bold.
Because in standard RLHF, the Kullback-Leibler penalty is the fundamental guardrail, right?
Aww.
It keeps the model from drifting too far from the base SFT model's distribution, so removing it indicates immense confidence in the reward signal.
Letting the policy update with 0 KL restrictions means they knew their reward functions couldn't be easily hacked. And honestly, you can only remove the KL penalty if you implement task-routed rewards.
Because a generic symbolic verifier like math verify would just fail completely?
Completely. It fails when you ask a model to draw a bounding box or describe the aesthetic layout of a chart. So Vero implements 10 different reward functions dynamically routed by the task type. For grounding tasks, they actually use Hungarian matching for bounding boxes, requiring an intersection over union greater than 0.5.
Okay, let's break down the loss landscape for Hungarian matching in this specific context. If there are multiple bounding boxes on a screen, how does the reward function assign credit without penalizing the model for simply outputting the right boxes in the wrong order?
Well, the Hungarian matching algorithm solves the bipartite matching problem optimally. It finds the optimal one-to-one assignment between the predicted bounding boxes and the ground truth boxes that minimizes the overall distance or the loss.
Okay.
Because spatial perception doesn't possess a step-by-step reasoning chain, you can grade token by token. Hungarian matching provides a definitive, hard spatial threshold. You either localize the object accurately or you didn't, which gives the policy a stark, immediate gradient.
Right. Then for the open-ended tasks, like image captioning or instruction following, they use an LLM as judge. Specifically, they utilize Qwen 332B. But they hard-coded an explicit penalty for self-evaluative language or meta-commentary in the judge's prompt.
This is so important because RL models naturally evolve into confident-sounding fabricators if you leave them unchecked. During training, the model quickly learns that adding phrases like, based on a thorough visual analysis of the pixel data.
Oh, I hate when they do that.
Right. But it tricks standard LLM judges into awarding higher scores, regardless of the actual accuracy of the output.
So penalizing that meta-commentary forces the model to actually perform the task.
Exactly. It forces it to extract the data or describe the image, rather than generating a persuasive essay about how well it is performing the task. It surgically removes that reward hacking vector.
Okay, so the rewards are dynamically routed. The algorithm is preserving entropy. The data is incredibly clean. Now we need to look at the data loader itself. Because common sense and supervised fine-tuning dictates that we should oversample difficult data.
You would think so?
Right. If a model struggles with spatial tasks during an evaluation, you weight the sampling to force it to practice more spatial tasks. Why wouldn't we weight the sampling by difficulty in this multitask RL setup?
Well, the researchers actually ablated 4 different mixing schemes: uniform equal ratios, difficulty weighted, image area weighted, and reasoning length weighted. And the results run entirely counter to standard intuition.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Uniform equal ratios significantly outperformed all the targeted schemes, achieving a plus 5.8-point gain on average. The difficulty-weighted schema actually degraded performance on the STEM tasks.
But why? Why does targeting the model's weaknesses actively degrade its overall performance?
It relates back to the interference and gradient overrating we talked about earlier. Multitask visual RL is essentially a distribution design problem. Broad capability emerges from balanced exposure to all behavioral modes simultaneously.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
If you skew the training distribution to heavily overrepresent the spatial tasks the model is failing at, the massive influx of spatial policy gradients begins to overwrite the deductive logic weights required for STEM. You might cure the spatial deficit, but you induce catastrophic forgetting and mathematical reasoning.
Wow. And this dynamic shows up starkly in their single-task ablations. When they train the model exclusively on STEM data, its performance on grounding and search tasks plummeted by an astonishing 15.8 points.
Yeah, it effectively forgot how to locate objects in space.
But when they trained on the uniformly mixed Vero 600K dataset, they saw positive gains from plus 0.3 to plus 4.2 points across all 6 categories simultaneously on Qwen 2.5 VL.
The framework proves remarkably efficient when benchmarked. If you look at the VeroEval results, Vero Qwen 3T8B achieved a 65.9 overall average. It recorded massive localized gains, including plus 6.9 points on Sharks of Reason, which is a notoriously difficult chart understanding benchmark.
Oh yeah, that was brutal.
And plus 5.8 points on CountQA. But the real standout metric involves the MIMO VL7B model. Applying this open VeroRL recipe to the base SFT version of MIMO VL7B resulted in a model that actually outperformed MIMO VL7BRL.
And MIMO VL7BRL was trained by its original creators using a closed proprietary RL pipeline with non-public data. Beating a proprietary pipeline with a fully transparent open source recipe is just a massive milestone for the community. But honestly, the section of this paper that warrants the closest read from an engineering perspective is Section 7.
Yes, the cognitive behavior analysis.
Because they didn't just benchmark the final accuracy of the outputs, they mapped the latent cognitive behaviors inside the think tags.
Right. To analyze the actual mechanics of the reasoning traces, the researchers used an LLM pipeline to extract, deduplicate, and catalog low-level skills and high-level cognitive behaviors from the raw text generated by the model.
Okay.
And then they embedded these extracted traces into a 49 to 6-dimensional space and ran agglomerative clustering.
Which, for those listening, agglomerative clustering is a bottom-up approach. You start with each reasoning trace as its own individual cluster in that 4096-dimensional space, and then you iteratively merge them based on distance metrics. By mapping this dimensional embedding, they effectively map the model's latent mind without having to predefine the number of clusters. So what does that cluster analysis reveal about how the model tackles different visual inputs?
It reveals that the model isn't applying a monolithic, generalized reasoning strategy to every prompt. Different task categories trigger distinct, highly specialized cognitive profiles.
That's wild.
Yeah. When the model processes a STEM task, the trace analysis shows deep utilization of metacognitive backtracking. The model computes a step, checks its own work, spots a logical error, and then revises its strategy mid-thought. It is highly reflective and analytical.
But when presented with a grounding or search task, say, find the surveillance camera in this image, that reflective backtracking just vanishes completely. The model actively suppresses introspection.
Exactly. It abandons self-awareness in favor of directed visual search and spatial enumeration. It stops analyzing its own logic and simply scans the pixel space.
And for captioning tasks, the dominant extracted cluster is mental imagery simulation. The model simulates the aesthetic tone and composition of the output before generating the text.
Which is why the uniform data mixing is so mathematically critical. It teaches the model the meta skill of strategy selection. The embedding space shows that the mixed model's very first move is to identify the domain and select the appropriate cognitive toolkit before executing the task.
This architecture maps perfectly to the multiple demand systems in human neuroscience. Like when you switch from doing abstract algebra to looking for your car keys, your brain physically shifts task sets.
Right.
Your working memory unloads abstract mathematical rules, and your visual cortex takes priority to scan for specific metallic shapes. The Vero model is doing exactly that. It's adopting specialized cognitive personas based entirely on the visual prompt it receives.
And if you starve the model of diverse data by, say, only feeding it math equations, the reflective backtracking persona overwrites the other task sets in the latent space. The model literally loses the cognitive flexibility to just look at an image. The multitask RL is carefully balancing exposure so the model maintains access to all of these distinct cognitive personas simultaneously. The ultimate lesson for practitioners is that you really don't need a multi-billion-dollar proprietary cluster to achieve state-of-the-art visual reasoning. A transparent single-stage RL pipeline using GSPO, meticulously filtered data, and dynamically routed rewards is enough to compete with closed systems.
That's incredible. Well, before we go back to your code editor, consider the implications of this. We have seen that this model adopts highly specialized cognitive personalities based on 6 categories of static images. What happens when we scale this exact same architecture to continuous video? Or complex, multi-turn embodied robotics? In those environments, the model has to perform math, read a dynamic chart, and physically navigate a cluttered room, all within the exact same continuous context window. Do these distinct cognitive task sets smoothly blend together in the latent space? Or will we need to design entirely new architectural mechanisms to handle the cognitive friction of switching context in real time without dropping frames? Something to think about as you design your next training loop. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the research. Keep building, keep experimenting, and we'll see you next time.